Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the new Rebel Clash stuff, go ahead and check out the Poketown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, we are going to be looking at Qualifier 4 of the Limitless Invitational. We now know the 13 players that have made it successfully into the actual Invitational itself. That is based on the results from all 4 qualifiers. We, of course, also know the 8 decks that did the best this weekend in another very large-scale online event. I'm showing you right now the Complexity Card Gaming Day 2 decks. 165 decks did make it into Day 2. Pikachu Rom, once again, was the most dominant. 37 decks in total of that 165, which is, again, a very, very nice percentage. Baby Blounds and Turbozation had a big pickup in play. It also was the 2 finalist decks, so it seems like Turbozation has sort of picked up a lot of attention after the first Invitational. I don't think this is necessarily just good meta placement, seeing as though its Baby Blounds matchup isn't the most comfortable, and Pikachu Rom also isn't the most comfortable, especially with things like Big Charm and and Chaotic Swell that Pikachu Rom could be playing. Turbozation normally sits a little bit out of range of its damage output, but I do think that Jirachi Prism Star combo is very strong. It's one of the decks that I picked up immediately when Rebel Clash came out. I saw Scoop Up Net's potential, and alongside Jirachi, it was one of my first pet decks to start playing, and I'm really happy to see it do so well, which is cool. Dragapult also did exceptionally well. If you combine those 2 Dragapult decks, it's up there just behind Pikachu Rom, so it's actually above the Blounds and Turbozation, so if you are lumping that Dragapult, it's also had a very good conversion, continues to be strong. ADPization still in there, still 12 decks making very respectable day 1 records, which is cool. Spiritomb Beasts kind of popped up, which was interesting. Definitely something that I'd been testing a lot on stream. I really did think it was probably the most well-placed deck going into the tournament. Naturally, with things like Mew and forcing Baby Buzzwole, had a pretty solid Pikachu Rom matchup. Also with the Tapu Fini and being able to single prize race with your Spiritombs seemed very decent against Baby Blounds, especially because you were usually more one prize based than Baby Blounds was, as they are much more likely to be forced to put down the likes of Zacians, Oricorios, Dedennes, Eldegoss, those sorts of cards, whereas Spiritomb could have been more complete one prizes for the most part. ADP Tomb also had a small cult following, which it's had basically the entire time. Never been super popular, but also always kind of been in and around. Luke Metalization still there as well. We do see Ultimate Mewtwo had a couple interesting placements. Obstagoon still in there as well, after sort of being the secret deck for Q3 for a few people. Cincino Control has gone way down the food chain. Feels like Control is just not in a good spot, trying to beat down Pikachu Roms of 14 physical energy cards. Got to work your way through a bunch of Dragapults, which are still doing very well. Is tough going, really, for it at the moment. And then there's a bunch of other decks in there as well. You can see Toxtricity, Rillaboom. Excadrill's done it again. See some Greens decks, Magcargo, stuff like that. So, yeah, pretty diverse pool. But once again, we are seeing the likes of Pikachu Rom, Baby Blounds, and Dragapult kind of being the top 3 Zacian decks as a whole, kind of working its way into the sort of tournament as well. So, yeah. Before I get on to the top 8, I am just going to say that the voting has now opened up for content creators. There are 3 spots left in the actual Invitational itself. You'll see this is the actual ranking. So here are the players, the top 13 players, as there was a tie in 12th. The top 13 players on performance who will be participating in this tournament. So Azul got in. He probably would have been voted for anyway, let's be honest. Everyone loves Azul, so it doesn't really change much. It just means there's one less content creator getting the vote, but Azul would have been voted for anyway, let's be fair. So these other players done very well across a number of tournaments. Kayron, interestingly, I believe he only played 2 of the qualifiers, so he's done amazingly well to make it through. And all these other players obviously doing excellently throughout those 4 events. But if you do want to help out OmniPoke, currently, I'll just give this a refresh, we are sat in 2nd, but as you can see, the voting changes like by the hour. It is very, very close, and there is only 3 content creators that will get into the qualifier. I really do appreciate all the support, as does Jack, that we've had so far. but we're not really comfortably far ahead where we can stop asking for your attention. So if you do have spare votes and you do want to send it our way, me and Jack are going to have a stream where we play against each other to see who then is able to progress into the actual invitational. So if you want to see some more content from us, it could be pretty fun. And yeah, always appreciate the support that you give us in the comments and likes and subscribers and all that good stuff. But if you do want to help out the channel even more, that would be very generous of you. So that would be awesome. That's all I'll say on that though. So you can see the other 12 players there. But let's jump into the top 8 decks, which is why you're all here. We start off with Takato Seki, who was playing Turbozation. As I said, it was a Turbozation finals, which is really awesome because honestly it's been like kind of my brainchild, kind of the thing that I was rocking from the very start of this metagame. Initially I just wanted to see if Wish Upon a Star was strong enough with Scoop Up Net. Then I realized it was, and I was like, wow, this is just super fun and cool to play. And I actually like a lot of the aspects of his list. The Pokemon core is basically exactly what I would have played as a Pokemon core. Potentially could have played second Mr. Mime. That's kind of the only contentious card, but I love the 4 copies of Zacian. I love the 1 more Wild GX. Obstagoon obviously did pop up, but also just everyone forgets of how important it is to just get a 2 energy attack in with this deck. Super, super big deal. So I liked Morwile just being something that could finish things off. I think we saw Azul play Dustmane Necrozma, another great card that you could play for that sort of strategy. If it wasn't Azul, a few other top placing Turbozations did play it, so yeah, definitely interesting. As we work our way down though, the list does get very different from what I was initially testing, because you're seeing 2 copies of Sonya. Sonya is not really something I was expecting at all. You get to search out some basics and some energy cards, but ultimately the early game is pretty much based on that, so something I definitely do want to explore now that I've seen it be a thing. Additionally, I do really like that he's playing extra search in general. 4 Quick Ball has never really felt like enough in this list. I've tried some wackier stuff. You know I like me a Great Ball. You know I like me some other stuff like that. But we've got 4 Quick, 1 Friend, and 2 Sonya in this list to try and compensate so you can actually get that Pantomime Wish combo rolling. Also, it means like when you are up against control stuff, you can just take those straight out of the deck and get access to them immediately, and then those Scoop Up Nets are live for you to close the game because you can get a second use of that Jirachi Prism Star Mr. Mime combo. So I think that's what's so integral. Sonya just lets you do the combo more than 1 time. A lot of the time in this deck, your goal is to kill a 3-prizer and then just gust a Dene and use Jirachi Prism to win you the game. But when you have Sonya, you can be more aggressive. You can just ignore the big threats and just go for double the Dene, or, you know, knock out something, a couple just regular GXs. So definitely very cool. Can get through like 2 Zacians or something like that. So it does seem like, ironically, like an aggressive supporter because it's just finding the combo pieces, which is pretty cool. Also, we see Metal Goggles as a 2 count here being played over Frying Pan. Thought it was very interesting. I've heard that Metal Goggles was actually bugged and you could prevent damage from Horror Psychic Energy. If that's the case, it was just smart from Takato to take advantage of that. There was nothing shady about it. There was not a banned card or anything, and just having that knowledge obviously served him well because Dragapult was a popular card. Goggles was in the deck anyway to try and help against Pulse, just to make your Zacians tankier on the bench and not be able to be put into range of them. So just in general a good card against Pult, but even better with the little interaction that it has with Horror Psychic Energy. So very interesting for sure. A couple of things that I'm not a huge fan of. Just playing 1 Shrine. I don't like just 1 Stadium in general, but Shrine always felt really important to me, especially against things like Pikachu Rom and stuff, because you want to be able to just get through a Pikachu Rom and deal with a Dedenne a lot of the time to close the game. So Shrine ticking things like Pikachu Rom, especially into range, felt important to me. So I would have liked a second copy of Shrine, potentially digging into that Boss's Orders count, potentially another card that I'm not really seeing stick out right now, but in general, looks pretty okay to me. I also like the 12 energy count. I've been sat at 11 for the longest time, and ultimately, if you miss Intrepid Swords or you miss early game attachments, things get rough. So going for the full 12 and sticking to that number seems very, very smart. I don't know if every other Zacian player has gone for that approach, but definitely something to bear in mind. As we go on to Azul's second place list, very different to be honest. It's still playing that one copy of Friend Ball, so it seems like Friend Ball was a great decision for the tournament. He's got a couple extra Pokemon in here. He is playing the 2-Mime, 2 Guru. He's playing that Dustmane, as I mentioned. He's playing Tapu Fini, and he's also playing Mewtwo for the Scoop Up Net combo. I'm not sure how much I like the Mewtwo personally, because normally I found my bench space being usually sucked up by the Pantomime, Guru stuff a lot of the time. But it is an additional option. It can be that extra boss. It can be an extra money for hand disruption. So I guess it is a flexible option. It kind of lets him lean into the acrobikes that he's playing a little bit more. Acrobike allowing you to have more explosive turns, getting energy in the discard pile, as well as like into your hand for early game resources, like digging towards those quick balls or the Friend Ball and stuff. So I can see the synergy with acrobike definitely. And I like that it just gets you into that turn 2 attack with Zacian a little bit more. So I can certainly see Acrobike being a keeper in the list. And I think potentially that's why he is playing the Mewtwo. He can be a bit more liberal, digging deep into the deck, throwing away a Great Catcher, throwing away a boss, throwing away like Marnie, knowing you can mind report them back. So that's an interesting decision. But I do like the count of double catcher, double boss. I think I prefer that to the previous list that played 3 and 1, because Great Catcher Dedenne is like such a big win con for this deck when you are taking the third prize off of that Jirachi Prism Star. So yeah, another great list from Azul. I think this is one that a lot of people will follow, because Sonya isn't like often, like, it's a questionable card for sure. I can see the logic behind it, having played the deck a decent amount, but it's not something that a lot of people will initially like look towards. And obviously Azul is a super popular and prominent player, so a lot of people will flock to that list, I believe. We see Pikachu Rom once again doing very well, got a top 4 placement. Looks like the Tag Call engine was once again prevailing. This list is playing Marnie and Volkner, as well as the Tag Call package, so interesting to not see much burst draw, especially when it only plays one copy of Dedenne. So this looks like quite a slow list, I want to say, a lot of the time. I think the main reason is it's trying to lean into this power plant more than anything else. So you don't want to have that anti-synergy of needing to Dede change mid-game when you've put a power plant down against your opponents. So I guess it's just a more defensive approach with this list over anything else. It has got another couple interesting cards in here. It's got one copy of Vitality Band. It can obviously help push against 270 hit point stuff and a few other break points of damage. So that's an interesting include that we haven't seen for like a long time in Pikachu Rom. It's normally just been Big Charm or nothing. So it's interesting to see the Vit Band come in here. Also seeing no copies of E-Switch, just one copy of Tag Switch. Makes the Bolton a little bit harder to get rolling, makes that Thunder Mountain a bit more of a priority. So you have to play quite differently with this list than most other Pikachu Roms, I would say, because there's a few glaring differences here. Definitely has a slightly different playstyle to most Pikachu Roms you'd expect to see, I would say. But not necessarily a bad thing. It's done very well. Kayron, as I mentioned, did phenomenally to make it into the Invitational itself. He was piloting Dragapult, playing the 3-3 Pult, playing the Distortion Door, as well as the Dimension something Giratina, the E-Hammer Giratina. Also playing Crushing Hammers, so he's still expecting things like ADPization and Mirror to be popular. Also seeing value in the card in general against other matchups is okay. We've got the Zigzag, Eldegoss, Dedenne, we've got Mew, and we've got one copy of Zamazenta V. Now, I don't know if I'll ever understand this include, but I guess it's something that you do alongside Reset Stamp and buy yourself time, I guess. I do know that Mirror Match with Dragapult can get super weird, and it can feel like you literally can't win the game if they get the first hit on you a lot of the time. They just get such a influx of damage that Zamazenta may be in here just to make that be less of a headache, or at the very least be like a late game option where you stamp Zamazenta hoping to get yourself some additional time against people, which is quite an interesting inclusion for sure. I don't think many people were expecting this card, but I guess it would have been useful for him throughout the tournament. We haven't seen many Dragapults just rock those stamps. Normally you see a high Marnie count, but instead he's gone for the draw 6 from Cynthia and making the physical spaces for the reset stamps. I actually quite like this trade-off because I have found myself whiffing a handful of times with Pult, so going towards the Cynthia does make a good amount of sense to me, especially because in the early turns you are really looking towards those Crushing Hammers. I'm assuming that Kayron believes that he's got a decent enough Baby Plowns anyway to not feel like he needs those Marnies in the early turns, so I guess if you're just targeting things like Jirachis, you've already got a decent amount of disruption at your side. So yeah, an interesting list all round. But again, nothing too outlandish there. It's all reasonable. Eric, I know he's a friend of the channel. He's also playing Turbozation, so really cool to see so much Turbozation do very well this tournament. Again, it's rocking the Morwile, it's rocking the Dustmane. It's also got the Finny in here, so a large plethora of attackers. It's got the double boss, the great catcher this time of Fion. Fion obviously very good against goons and very good against control decks, so that makes a lot of sense. It feels like everyone's clocked onto the Friend Ball card. It seemed like in Qualifier 3 there was like murmurs of it, but not many people actually like locked it in. But having that extra ball search is a really big deal in the deck. And again, rocking those acro bikes. So it looks like more and more people sort of worked their way towards this sort of 60. This one being much closer to Azul's final 60. I don't know if it was something he was streaming in his last couple of days in the lead up to the tournament or whatever, but it feels like a lot of people were clocking on to Turbozation by the end. Illya has been playing Ultimate Mewtwo in the last couple of qualifiers, I believe, and he's brought Ultimate Mewtwo this time around. Got some interesting includes in here. It's got the haha let's hit for weakness with the Xerneas for ADP. It's got Sabletar for Dragapult, Marshchamp for Pikarom, and just Mewtwo in general is good against Pikarom, so yeah, pretty decent all round. Obviously playing Jirachi GX, so you don't just get bopped by Dragapults, although this is a slightly weak bench sitter at times. It's got Chrogonal in here as well for some disruption against the opponents to slow them down. Maybe disrupt a win con here or there, buy yourself an extra turn to find things. It's not necessarily just a card for control, seeing as though he's already playing ADP plus Raticate GX combo. I think this is more just like a panic button, slow my opponent down for a turn, let me dig for game, let me skew the prize trade for a turn kind of deal. That's really what I think it's in here for the most part. Other than that, nothing too surprising. I think the only real, I guess, surprise for me is that we're not seeing any Giant Charm. I guess the amount of ADP has dropped off so much that Mewtwo can just sit at 270 and be tanky enough these days. So it's a cute choice from him to make spaces in that regard. I think that's the only real surprise in this list. Also a slightly lower energy count than we've seen previously. I think the last Ultimate Mewtwo that did very well played like 13. So instead, he's chosen more Pokemon tech cards instead. So a few cute things there. Wambolt is rocking the Spiritomb Beasts. Again, a deck that I was playing a bunch in the build-up to the tournament, so happy to see this deck do so well. The Pokemon shell looks very similar to what I was trying out, but with the addition of Buzzmosa to add in a nice GX attack option, being able to punish things like Jirachi, especially with that Beast Energy if you could, alongside Boss's Orders. That can certainly get some cheeky wins on your side. Beast Game as well works quite nicely with Spiritomb's damage output. Spiritomb capping around that 220 kind of range, and with Shrine Ticks and whatnot, you can Beast Game a tag team quite happily, so that can be a nice way to get over the line, that Beast Game GX attack. Got a very standard supporter line, got the Acrobikes, Quick Balls. For me, the only real surprise is that it doesn't have much Ball Search in addition to the Quick Balls. I personally was trying Great Balls. I've also tried Pokénavs. I've tried a handful of things in here for sure. So for me, it's slightly surprising to not see any additional Ball Search, but instead just going for the heavy Acrobike route. But Acrobike's obviously decent as well. You can see he's playing Ordinary Rod and a basic Dark Energy over playing Lana's Fishing Rod. I think that's another card that I would have preferred. Interesting that he's playing Tool Scrapper as well. Not a card that I ever really found space for in my tomb. Always felt like this deck had too many ugly openers to play Scrapper, but it can come in clutch against some big charms and a few other things. So yeah, overall, a couple interesting includes. I personally would like the Lana's Rod, but I do like the option of the Buzzmosa. Probably got him through some tough spots. So overall, ADP Beasts, Spiritomb Beasts seems to be as good as ADP Tomb at least, and possibly better if Pikarom and Baby Blounds are the two top decks to beat. I do think it has a potentially tough Zacian, especially if Zacian goes back to Frying Pan, so that's something to bear in mind. I don't think you're that comfortable against Zacian, so Tomb Beasts may be worse placed going into future tournaments. Justin was playing Pikarom, and again, looks pretty normal. Looks like Tag Call was, for the most part, just the most played list. This looks like a very standard Pokemon count. Got the Mew in here for mirror matches. Obviously, Pikarom did so well in Q3 that it just makes sense to add that in. Everything else looks pretty much as standard as it gets. No surprises here whatsoever. I think Air Balloon's the only addition that kind of makes you think, is it worth it? Also interesting that he played a full 11 basic energy and only 3 speed lightning instead of a higher split towards the speed lightnings. But yeah, that's it really. A lot of ADP, a lot of Turbozation, a lot of Pikachu Rom. Again, not only in the top 8, but also in that top 16. Jack was on winning in. He was playing Pikachu Rom once again. He played it in Q3 as well. Saw no reason not to play the deck again. I think he made one change from his last list, which was dropping an E-switch for a tag switch. He said it was fine throughout the tournament and gave him more burst potential, more options to run over people if they don't have immediate answers to you. So you just like get into that end game situation as soon as they can't deal with a certain board. So that is the benefit of tag switch. Also, it helps you move speed lightnings around, so it's slightly more versatile than the E-switch. But in the opening turns, like, it's slightly worse for trying to get that turn 1 full blitz. So it's a bit of a trade-off, but nothing too surprising about Jack's list. And he did very well. I think he had Baby Blounds as his winning in, which is just one of those things. And yeah, he was down paired, so that's why he didn't make top 8, but his opponent also didn't make top 8, if that makes sense. I think it might have been Filippo who he played against, the Baby Blounds player. But regardless, he did very well. I think he was the highest finishing UK player over the few tournaments. Obviously, I only played in 1 qualifier, so I'm nowhere near those sort of rankings. Been a little bit lazy, but who knows? Could still end up in the qualifier if you guys generously vote for myself and for Jack. His games are going to be going up throughout the week. I'm also hoping to get a few videos going during this week as well. So it's going to be a mishmash of Jack's Pikachu Rom journey, as well as a few extra videos from me here and there. So hopefully it's something to look forward to. Also, I'm going to be uploading the OmniPoke 18K sub celebration stream this week. Thanks so much again for the support. It's really awesome to see this channel grow. It's been since May 2014 that this channel's been going, so it's a long time. But we're really happy with where the channel's at, and we're hoping to grow it even more in future. So yeah, that's all the discussion today, guys. Hope you did enjoy. Hope you had fun during the Limitless Qualifiers. I think it's going to be one of those things that we look back on, and we're going to be missing it in a few weeks' time, especially if lockdown lasts much longer. We're going to be twiddling our thumbs for a little bit, because this was a really awesome tournament. Limitless had no reason to do this other than the generosity and the kindness out of their hearts. So they've done an absolute solid for the community. Some amazing people, a lot of people behind the scenes as well, that may not get the plaudits they deserve, but they've really done a lot for the community, and I really do think it's an awesome thing where we've all been able to come together. We gritted our teeth through the first attempt, but man, they've made it absolutely stunning over the last few weeks. So thanks so much to Limitless for everything they've done. You can check out their podcast as well. That's also fantastic content. But yeah, can't say much more about it, to be honest. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll be back with more videos soon. Cheers.